Back to Live Now from Fox. Right before the break, we were playing out remarks from Secretary Kennedy talking about the newly revised dietary guidelines. And he shared this from social media saying these guidelines return us to the basics. American households must prioritize whole, nutrient-dense foods, protein, dairy, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, and whole grains, and dramatically reduce highly processed foods. This is how we make America healthy again. To speak more on some of these updated guidelines, I do want to bring in board-certified physician and author of Never Let Them See You Sweat, How Science Can Help Us Harness Stress for Success, Dr. Lee Vinokur, and Vinokur, I should say. And Dr. Vinokur, we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Okay, before Dr. Vinokur goes, welcome to the video, everyone. I'm doing a reaction here to the new dietary guidelines that have been introduced by Secretary Kennedy, and looking to get people to eat more healthier, stay off the processed foods. Um, we do know that there definitely is an obesity problem in America, and he's trying to do something. I haven't heard from Secretary Kennedy, um, in a while, so I was interested to see what he was going to say. Of course, there's an initiative now to not have artificial flavoring in the foods and certain dyes and stuff like that that often link to a lot of health issues. The main one is definitely cancer. But let's hear what Dr. Vinokur has to say here.
Thank you for having me.
So I do want to get straight to the revised dietary guidelines. A lot of people may not really understand what the updates are. Can you kind of map that out for us?
Well, what he was suggesting is some of the things, truthfully, were in the old guidelines, like whole foods and not ultra processed foods and not a lot of added sugar. And those things are still in the revised guidelines. Now, if you looked at the pyramid that was drawn and his talking points, it sort of shows dairy and animal protein at the top with grains at the bottom. But there were some contradictions between what the pyramid looked like and really what the written recommendations are. Because even though whole
I think a lot of these healthier foods, they need to lower the prices on them. That would help out a lot.
grains were at the bottom, it still says in the written recommendations that you should have 2 to 4 servings of whole grains a day. And even though in his press conference, Secretary Kennedy talked about ending the war on saturated fats, still in and at the top were a lot of saturated fat looking food products. He still says in the written guidelines that it should be less than 10% of your diet, and it looks like it's mostly animal for protein, but truthfully in the written guidelines it talks about a variety of plant-based proteins too, like lentils. So when you really boil it down, the written guidelines are not that far off from the old USDA guidelines. The pyramid looks different, and that's what's going to be a little bit confusing for consumers, doctors, dietitians, and everybody else.
Yeah, I also want to ask you about the dairy products, because there is this new push for full fat dairy products without added sugars. And I think it's been ingrained in so many people that full fat might be dangerous and to go to the non-fat or the low fat. Can you talk about, from the medical guidelines, the health perspective, what doctors would recommend?
Yeah. So the issue with so much low fat, which a lot of low fat foods were ultra processed. So, and everybody agrees ultra processed foods are very bad for you. But with the low fat, they would sometimes add sugar to improve the taste. Okay. But in certain dairy products that are lower in fat, maybe not non-fat, you can look at the back and see if there's any added sugars. And they put added sugars on labels years ago. So I understand that. And having some full fat dairy and a little bit of butter is not bad. But again, the guidelines that are written still say it needs to be less than 10% of your diet and daily intake. So even though Secretary Kennedy said, no more war on saturated fat and we need to eat full fat dairy, you still have to temper that because the written recommendations are still it should be less than 10%.
Let's talk about ultra processed foods because that's something that in the recent years we've heard a lot about, for instance, chips. And we've been trained now to look at the list of ingredients and to see if we can easily identify specifically what these products are made of. But, there might be some confusion because let's say, for a typical tortilla chip, you have corn, you have salt, you have oil. Is that still considered ultra processed foods, or is that, the better alternative if you're craving something versus some of these that have these, chemical ingredients added to them?
Well, it's interesting, and you're right, Stephanie, because now people look, and if they don't understand the ingredients, we know for sure there are chemicals. Although certain chemicals are found in nature and used as preservatives for shelf life and may not be as harmful as other chemicals. But certainly, chips in general, it's the question of the oil and how did they fry them? And were there a lot of trans fats and things like that? So, uh, if you're trying to limit your saturated fats to less than 10%, I mean, once in a while, don't beat yourself up. In my book, I talk about don't beat yourself up if you have a slip up once in a while. But no, should this be something that you're eating every day? And, there are baked chips, or you can take your own corn tortillas and bake them yourself or things like that. And that's the other issue with the new guidelines. There are different cultural issues with food, right? Hispanic food that has more corn tortillas and things like that, and beans. So it doesn't really address those either. So there's a little confusion there on what to do. But certainly, eliminating chips from your diet would not be a bad thing to do in general, and just eat more fruits and vegetables and whole grains. Even though they're at the bottom of the visual pyramid, it's still 2 to 4 servings a day in the written recommendations.
So yeah, definitely want to eat more fruits, more vegetables, and you don't know what you like until you try it. So you may want to step outside your comfort zone when it comes to that, and of course, less fried foods. Limit the amount of chips that you're eating. Um, all these things are good suggestions, and if we're trying to be serious as far as getting back to being a little bit more healthy, these are going to be the steps that need to be taken, and read the labels. If it's a lot of stuff on there that you don't recognize or that you can't pronounce, more than likely it's not going to be good for you. Um, I feel like they've been putting chemicals in the food for so long that it is the cause of why there's so many health issues that's going on amongst everyone. And a lot of times we just go through and we do stuff without even thinking about it as far as what we choose to eat. And we really, if health is important to us, we definitely want to place a lot of priority on making sure that we eat the right things and go about it the right way. But I'm gonna go ahead and close out here. The her video has looks like around like 5 more minutes left. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this one out. Um, when you get a chance, take a look at the new pyramid. Um, I don't see a clip in it here, a clip of it here. But yeah, the pyramid was upside down. I had seen a little picture of it, and you know, it's gonna have all those things on it, like of course, meat protein. But there's been a lot of plant-based protein products that's out there. I think the main thing again, as I was saying earlier, is the cost. If we can get the cost down on some of these things, I feel like people will be more inclined to try them and to keep iterating them into their weekly meals. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm gonna go ahead and close out. If you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.